Alright, what's up guys? All new deck profile today. We are doing Sacred Beasts, one of my very favorite decks. I love Sacred Beasts. They just got a new card. It's called the Armityle the Chaos Phantasm, Phantom of Fury. Incredibly long name. This card gives you an additional element of just going second. One of the things that this deck really struggles with. Yeah, going second is one of the bigger problems of the deck. Just simply because a lot of the cards are very much built to go first, and it's tough to play through negates. But this card actually does help you go second. What it basically does is you fusion it, summon it the same way you would summon the regular Armityle, but it has an effect where during the end phase, the control of this card switches to your opponent, and then it has another effect that activates that banishes all cards on the field, so which is an incredibly good effect. It's really good against Eldritch because doesn't matter what they do, whether they activate it after this card or before this card. Basically, you give them control of this card. It mandatory has to activate. It activates, banishes their whole field. And even if they start triggering cards in graveyard to start setting cards, it's going to banish them anyway, because this is always a mandatory chain link 1, and it will resolve, and all of their cards will get banished regardless, which is really good. But it has some really cool elements. It helps play against back row decks. And it helps sort of, it definitely helps in the grind game for sure when you start getting a ton of Sacred Beast cards in the graveyard. But let's get started with the deck profile. First of all, we are playing 2 copies of Haman. He's one of the better cards because he has a negate spell card that's associated with him. So he's one of the better ones for that. Also, he has really good stats. He's 4,000, 4,000. His effects are pretty useless. I rarely use him for any effects. Basically, he has an effect where he is the only, your opponent, if this card's in defense mode, your opponent has to attack this. Which doesn't really come up unless you have a Magician's Soul on your field or something like that, and you want to protect it for the following turn. It really doesn't come up too often, but I would say there are brief occasions where you could, I suppose you could use it. So we've got 2 copies of that. We play 2 copies of Raviel. Raviel is another one that's fairly good. Basically, the only additional effect, a lot of these, you usually don't use their effects, you use all the supporting cards' effects, but Raviel actually has an effect where if your opponent normal summons a monster, you can special summon a token for free. Decently useful. We play 1 copy of Uriah, Lord of Seeing Flames. This Uriah is has the best effect of any Sacred Beast monster on its own. It has the best. It's in isolation, this is actually the best of the Sacred Beasts, but within the Sacred Beast deck, this card is actually the worst. So on its own, it gains 1,000 attack for every continuous trap in the graveyard, which is really useful if you play a build centered around Uriah. But the only issue is, if you're playing just the standard, if you're playing the Sacred Beast, all of them together in one deck, you typically don't play a lot of counter traps, so his attack is really going to be, more than often, just 0. So that effect kind of sucks, but then it has a second effect which is kind of cool, which is you can target a spell and trap card your opponent controls and then destroy it, and your opponent cannot respond to that effect. Super awesome. That is actually a really good effect, because you can destroy things like Solemn Strike. You can destroy things like just anything. You can just activate the effect and they can't respond to it. So it's super useful. Then we've got a copy of Raviel. This one is basically, it's like a second Raviel. It's basically like a Honest Neo, so you get to boost your Raviel's attack. It's pretty good for that. Alright, so now to the other monsters. We've got the Beasts. These are all of the Phantom Beasts, basically. These will help you summon out the Sacred Beasts very easily. So this one is probably the best of all of them. Basically, what it allows you to do is when it's normal summoned, you can search essentially any card that lists the Sacred Beasts in its text, and then it has a second effect, which it gives you an additional normal summon of a 0 attack fiend, or just a fiend, 0 attack, 0 defense fiend. So it's actually one of the better cards in the deck. By the way, if you want to check out some combos for this, I actually have combos already posted on the channel for this deck. They're pretty comprehensive. The only thing you change is that you can now summon Dragoon with extra cards that you have if you want to. We play 3 copies of Chaos Summoning Beast. This one is also very good. Basically, you contribute the Chaos Summoning Beast in order to special summon a Sacred Beast, meaning, the ones I showed at the beginning, from your hand, ignoring summoning conditions. Also has a second effect where you can banish this out of the graveyard and then search their field spell, the Fallen Paradise. which will give them protection and allow you to draw. So again, this is one you want to max out on. Next we play Dark Summoning Beast. This is the first Summoning Beast to come out. Basically, this one is, again, it's a very good one, but it has like a pretty frustrating drawback. Which is actually helped by the new card. It has a frustrating drawback. So you can actually tribute this card in order to special summon one of the sacred beasts to your side of the field, ignoring summoning conditions, from your deck. Extremely good because it gets it out of the deck and ignores summoning condition. That's awesome. Its second effect is that it allows you to banish it from the graveyard in order to search a sacred beast. Now that first effect that lets you special summon from the deck, unfortunately that effect actually is problematic because if you use it, you actually can't attack that turn, which is okay if you're going first, but if you're going second, it's annoying, and it really made Armityle kind of less useful because you would lose your own ability to attack, and then you'd summon Armityle with 10,000 attack, and it did nothing. But the new Armityle allows you to, it doesn't worry about attacking, you just give it to your opponent and it banishes their whole field, so you don't have to worry whether you attack or not. You can just fusion summon into him and it's fine. So yeah, it's the only drawback for that card. We play 2 copies of that. Next we play 3 copies of Magician Souls. This card is actually really important for the deck. I wish there were more budget options, but this card is actually extraordinarily good. It basically allows you to special summon itself for free, which is already good because it can help you get into Predaplant and Verde Anaconda very easily. But outside of that, the free special summon, outside of that, it's also good because it lets you send face-up spell cards. It lets you send spell cards on your side of the field or spell cards in your hand to the graveyard to not just spell cards, but spell and trap cards in order to draw that same number. And that's really, really good in this deck because sometimes you will draw multiples of the same spell and trap cards, and you just don't need them. And you can very easily just trade them out for Magician Souls to draw more cards and accumulate more advantage. It's actually an extremely good card in the deck. Additionally, you have, like for example, Opening of the Spirit Gates. There's a cool combo with Opening of Spirit Gates and Magician Souls where you can use Magician Souls to get rid of Cerulean Skyfire, and then you can use the second effect of the Opening of the Spirit Gates, which is if you control a level 10 monster, which all your Sacred Beasts are, you can actually add any continuous spell in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Back to your hand, which is going to be the Cerulean Skyfire. So it's almost like you didn't even discard it. And it's the same situation with the Opening of the Spirit Gates. You can actually add back Opening of the Spirit Gates back with Opening of the Spirit Gates just by controlling a level 10, which is just a standard part of your play anyway. It's a cool little game that you can play by accumulating and gathering advantage back up. But definitely, I think it's one of the cards. Unfortunately, as expensive as it is, I do think it makes the deck substantially better. But if you have any sort of anything to replace it with, you can put in the comment section for the budget players. Next, you play 1 copy of Apprentice Illusion Magician. This card is cool too. Basically, you just send it with Magician Soul, so you often don't use it. But if you need to use it, it's actually a free special summon. You can just discard any card, special summon for free, and then you can also search a Dark Magician if you want to, if you wanted to. Then we play the Dark Magician and the Red Eyes because we do actually play the Dragoon. And Dragoon in this deck is actually really good because we already play the Verde Anaconda anyway. And we already play Verde Anaconda regardless, so even if Dragoon didn't exist, we'd still play it. But this deck, before Dragoon came out, it would often end on like 1 or 2 extra monsters that you literally did nothing with. Like it would just end on like an extra Magician Soul and a Link Haribo, and then it'd end on 2 of your Sacred Beasts, like a Link Haribo, and like I said, like a Magician Souls, and you'd just be sitting on the 2 dead cards. But now you can turn those 2 dead cards into a Dragoon, which is extraordinarily helpful, like I said before. Next, we play 1 copy of Dimensional Fusion of Destruction. This is basically their fusion spell. You can use Predaplant Verde Anaconda to summon, whatever you need to summon. But basically, if you're summoning using the Sacred Beast, you can actually banish them from your hand, graveyard, or field, which is really cool. And again, you can use this from your deck, so you don't have to play more than 1 copy. But yeah, it's you just have to have all the resources, like I said, in your hand, field, graveyard, and you can basically use this, which is cool. Alright, next we play 2 copies of Fallen Paradise. I've actually considered dropping this to 1, but there are situations where it gets popped on activation, and I end up wanting to search a second one. But this is the field spell. It's one of the main playmakers of the deck. Or it's not the main playmaker. It's the main protection of the deck. Basically, if you control one of the Sacred Beasts, you can draw 2 cards. That's just a free effect that you can use every single turn. It's like Pot of Greed for no reason. So that's the first effect. Second effect, your Sacred Beast cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects. So it turns every one of your Sacred Beasts into a Chaos Max Dragon. And they're all like 4,000 attack. So it actually makes the deck pretty annoying to play against. Next, we play Opening the Spear Gates. One of my favorite. This is probably the best spell card in the archetype. Basically, what this allows you to do is when you activate it, you can add a one of the Sacred Beasts or a monster that lists the Sacred Beast in its text. That's what you can do on activation. Has another effect where you can discard a card to special summon a Fiend that's 0 attack, 0 defense from your graveyard. Also very good. And then its third effect is if you control a level 10 monster, you can add any continuous spell from your graveyard to your hand. 3 amazing effects all on one card. You really can't complain. This really should have been like a super rare. I really don't know why it's a common. Cerulean Skyfire. This is another good card. Basically, if you control them come on, you could just change it to defense position and negate the activation of a spell trap. Just useful. Now for the draws, we play 3 copies of Allure of Darkness. We play a lot of dark, so Allure of Darkness is not a huge problem for us. We play 3 copies of Triple Tactics Talents. This card is another one that's... I used to play Call by the Grave, but it got hit, so I just play this instead because it can steal Dragoon, it can get rid of a card in their hand. Like, if you're worried about hand traps, just play this. Again, I know it's expensive, and unfortunately the alternative got hit on the ban list. Like, I don't know what to tell you. It's a good card, and it's, I play it rather than Call by the Grave. We play 1 copy of Reasoning. Reasoning is another one that's good. It helps you play through... The reason I play Reasoning is it helps you play through interruptions like Ash Blossom stuff. Sometimes you'll normal summon, they'll Ash, and sometimes you'll be in a position where you run out of plays. So it's good to have Reasoning because you can activate Reasoning, your monster levels are all over the place, and you can hit like a Magician's Souls or like a Dark Summoning Beast or something like that. But more importantly, you can actually put these guys in the graveyard because they can't be normal summoned or set. So Reasoning actually just skips over them. Reasoning just, like I said, it just skips over them and keeps going, so it'll put them in grave real quick. And then you can use Predaplan Verde Anaconda, and you can go into the new Armityle a lot easier because it'll basically load the graveyard with them. And most of the time you'll hit like a level 1 or level 2 or level 3 that you need. Pretty cool there. You got 1 copy of 1 for 1 because it's limited to 1 and it gets out the level 1. Next we play 1 copy of Instant Fusion. The reason is I think a lot of the Instant Fusion targets are just very good. And this is just another way to replace the Call by the Grave that I used to play. Then we play 1 copy of Red Ice Fusion, obviously for the Dragoon. 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, and 2 copies of Awakening of the Sacred Beasts. This is their... Actually, I should talk about this. This is basically a card for every different Sacred Beast that you control. You gain an additional effect. If you control 1, every single time your opponent normal or special summons, you gain life points equal to their attack, which that actually does very much help when you're going into time, because like every combo deck has to special summon a lot to even be a threat. So they're going to special summon to the point where you are, you get to the point where you're like 20,000 life points, and then they have to actually attack over everything, and all your monsters can't be targeted or destroyed, so they're just digging their own deeper hole. The second effect is if you control 2 Sacred Beasts with different names, you can if you control 2 different Sacred Beasts, all monsters your opponent controls, basically it's a skill drain effect, their effects are negated. And then the third one is if you control 3 Sacred Beasts, which this never happened, like literally I think this has happened once ever. If you control 3 Sacred Beasts, any card that leaves the field on your opponent's side gets banished instead. Very useful, but that one just rarely comes up. But it's very good. That's a very good card. Now for the extra deck, we've got the Armityle, the new one. Basically, like I said before, it banishes your opponent's board at the end phase. We play the old Armityle. He basically gains 10,000 attack. Well, he becomes 10,000 attack, helps you win games. Phantasmal Emperor, Trilong. This is just another option that you can summon. It's basically just 3 level 10s. It's just another option. It's okay. It does burn damage, but this extra deck, it's weird. The extra deck is actually extremely important, but it's not tight at all. Like there's 5 extra deck cards that you have to play, and then the last 10 are just, they can be literally anything. And the problem is you actually cannot play Pot of Extravagance because you draw off of the Fallen Paradise, so you actually don't want to play the Pot of Extravagance, because if it wasn't for Fallen Paradise, I would just obviously play Pot of Extravagance instead of all of these random tech cards. But simply because simply because of the Fallen Paradise, you play all these various tech cards. Play one copy of Thousand Eyes because we are playing the Instant Fusion. We play one copy of Millennium Eyes. Basically, it's basically a Call by the Grave on wheels. We've got Wizard of. Also, it helps you beat Appaloosa too pretty easily. It's actually really good. Because it wrecks Appaloosa because you summon that and then you just activate any other effect. Appaloosa will attempt to negate. Appaloosa's once per chain. Activate this, steal the Appaloosa. So it basically one card wrecks Appaloosa. Then we've got Time Wizard of Tomorrow. It's another going second option for Instant Fusion. I wish Instant Fusion was at 3 because then I run 3 of this thing. Red Eyes Dragoon. Obviously, you know how to get there. One copy of Link Haribo. One copy of Salamangreat Almirage. One copy of Relinquished Anima. Protoplant Verde Anaconda. Nightmare Phoenix. Cerberus. Blackluster Soldier, Soldier of Chaos, actually is better than a lot of other cards. Simply because, this card is actually really good in this deck because all of your monsters are above level 5. So you can actually do various things. Yeah, all of your monsters are basically above level 7, I mean, because you play a bunch of level 10s. So you can just like attack, banish, do all types of cool stuff like that. And then we play one copy of Super Dreadnought, Rail Cannon, and Gustav Max. Sometimes life points get really close. You could just take 2 of your level 10s, smack them together, inflict 2,000 life points. But that is it. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe, comment any suggestions or anything you have to say down in the comment section below. And thank you for watching, guys.